Hi, this is Dennis for MediaMaker.Tips, and today I wanted to touch on the subject of differences between mirrorless cameras and DSLRs and see what advantages one has over the other, as well as understand why mirrorless cameras becoming more and more popular both among amateur and professional photographers. So without further delay, let's begin. So first, I think it is important to understand what mirrorless camera is, because there are quite a few misconceptions about this. And first, I have to say that the sensor, the most integral part of the camera, is no different than the one found in DSLRs. It is of the same size. It can be either APS-C or full-frame sized sensor, and the quality of it is no different from the one found in DSLRs, and in some cases even superior. So then, if the sensor is the same, what is the difference? Well, the difference is all in front of the sensor. You see, DSLRs rely on the mirror in front of the sensor to transfer light from the lens to a viewfinder, so you can see what you are going to shoot. Mirrorless cameras, on the other hand, as the name suggests, lack mirror in their construction. And so, light goes directly from the lens to a sensor without any intermediates. You might ask then, well, how does a viewfinder work then? Well, there is no optical viewfinder on mirrorless cameras, they are all digital, so in the essence they are just a second small LCD display, just like the one found in virtual headsets. So now when we understand where the difference lies, it's time to see what advantages or disadvantages it might bring. So, the first aspect where mirrorless naturally lead the way is size and weight of the body. This comes directly from the construction and design side. Due to the lack of mirror, the body can be both lighter and smaller in every dimension, yielding a significant advantage for photographers who travel with their cameras a lot. So, for instance, if the top DSLR Nikon D810 weighs almost 1 kilo, then top mirrorless cameras, which is Sony A7R II, weighs only 625 grams, so it's almost twice as light. The next point also has to do with the lack of mirror, and that is that mirrorless cameras, unlike traditional DSLRs, do not rely on optical viewfinder to compose your image. Instead, they use digital viewfinder, or in other words, small LCD in front of your eye, to display an image you will see when you press the shutter button. And so, since the viewfinder is completely digital, it displays exactly the same image that the sensor will capture. This means there is no need for visualizing anymore, the practice that's been in use since the very first camera. So in practice it means that using a mirrorless cameras is in a way easier, because you don't need to have a light meter and a lot of experience with cameras to understand what the final image would look like. Another notable difference is that mirrorless cameras, just like the camera in your smartphone, learned not to rely on physical shutter but can use electronic shutter instead. This means that the data from the sensor can be read so fast that there is no need for that physical shutter to shut off light from the sensor. In practice, this has such benefits as silent shooting, for example in situations when you do not want to be noticed as a photographer, as well as much higher flash sync speeds, so you can shoot in studio with strobes on much higher shutter speeds. Next, when it comes to buying a new camera or upgrading your current one, the mirrorless cameras offer better value for image quality for new bodies. I think this has to do partially with that they are mechanically simpler, and partially with the marketing, because manufacturers such as Sony and Fuji do not charge that brand price of Canon and Nikon. So for instance, looking for full-frame camera, you can buy Canon 5D Mark IV, or for twice less you can buy Sony A7 II, which has the same image quality. And if you are not only a photographer but also interested in video, then mirrorless is definitely a way to go. Because in the essence, mirrorless camera is the same as digital movie cameras. And unlike DSLRs that rely for focusing on a special sensor beneath the image sensor, to which light gets channeled via the mirror, mirrorless cameras have only one autofocus system, which has detect points directly on sensor. This means much better focused precision in video mode. So if video is as important for you as stills, then you should definitely take a closer look at mirrorless cameras. The last advantage of mirrorless cameras is the adoption of new technologies faster and quicker than DSLRs, which are more oriented on traditional market and so not as quick to innovate. But does this all mean that DSLRs should be gone for good? Well, not really, because they still have some advantages which have to do both with their construction and the fact that it's a more proven concept. So next, let's take a look at some things that DSLRs still triumph over mirrorless cameras. And first and most notable difference is autofocus system, which is far better on DSLRs, especially for sports, and especially on high-end DSLR cameras such as Canon 1DX and Nikon D1X and D5. Mirrorless cameras are getting close, but not quite there yet. Another thing that mirror is good for is physical sensor protection, because the mirror is in front of it and helps keep out dust and dirt, thus keeping the sensor safe. Anyone who ever cleaned the sensor himself would tell you that it's far more challenging than cleaning lenses or mirror. Another major advantage of DSLRs have to do with ecosystem. Here I mean the accessories, but mostly lenses. Whereas for DSLRs there are lenses for every need and budget, in mirrorless world there is often a shortage of good value glass. So before selling all your own gear and buying into the mirrorless, you should check that there are lenses that you will need. Another thing is that if you're only starting with serious photography, then buying a used camera is a better way to go about it. And in this case, DSLRs also have advantage over mirrorless cameras because of a more saturated used market. Now, remember when I told you how light and easy to travel with are mirrorless cameras? Well, the downside of that is shorter battery life and the need to have spare batteries which you replace. DSLRs, on the other hand, don't struggle with this as much because they have bigger bodies and thus have more space for bigger battery. I personally never had any troubles with changing battery in my A7 when it runs out, but I know some people consider this a pain in the ass. What does irritate me about mirrorless cameras, though, is the lack of certain features, such as, for example, the ability to do focus bracketing connected to a computer program. And this is just one personal example, but there are quite a lot of professionally oriented features that are available on DSLRs and not yet available on mirrorless cameras. And last advantage of DSLRs that gets brought up is that with it you look more professional, as they are bigger and thus people think that you're taking better photos. This might sound really silly, but in the eyes of layman, this is the truth. So there you have it. I hope this video helped you to determine which type of the camera will suit better your needs. If you decide to go with the mirrorless, you can also check out our other video on the best mirrorless cameras currently available. And if you want to read more about the differences between mirrorless and DSLRs, we also have an article on that. But on that note, it's time to wrap up this video and see you the next time.